Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Homeowners insurance increasing or deductible too high? Call, click, or come in. Save a Dave. Dave Miette Insurance Agency.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports, live from our Pontchartrain Productions studios and a beautiful day here in New Orleans. Jazz Fest weekend number 2, so much going on. Just again on the back end of the draft last weekend, the Pels eliminated from the NBA playoffs, and again, so much to look forward to going forward. A lot to break down when it comes to this program tonight. Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans, all the home teams, and of course to break it down for us, one of the best we have in the city, one of the best we have in the state. Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports is our guest. Sean, how are you, bud?
Doing great. Good time of year, huh?
Oh,
it really is a fun time of year. It's a lot of things going on, a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yep, and a little bit warm though, I got to tell you.
Yeah, it is a little warm.
It kind of creeped up on us. It went from again our little blink at spring to jumping in, and of course last week a little bit of 90-degree temperatures on at Jazz Fest. This week will be again in the 90s for sure. And of course you were in Baton Rouge on Saturday night with about 110,000 other people enjoying Garth Brooks. How was that?
Awesome. And I'm still reliving it. And you know, I first time in 15 years since I've been at Fox 8, I told my boss, I said, I need the Saturday of the draft off. At that point, the Saints had just had the 5th and the 6th rounder. They were like, yeah, just fine, it's fine. And so we, you know, when we had decided to do it, my wife got the tickets. You know, MVP, my wife's sister's friend, was somehow able to get through online and get the tickets, and we decided to go. And you know, I had a little bit. I was like, man, there's gonna be a lot of traffic. There's gonna be a lot of people. I don't know. I mean, no. Glad I went. And there's so much nostalgia for everyone inside of that building, Tiger Stadium, and it is to hear Garth Brooks, who, look, I didn't grow up on country music. I knew who Garth Brooks was. Sure. Knew the classics. Obviously went to LSU. Loved calling Baton Rouge, even when I wasn't a country music fan. I like some of the newer stuff now, but you don't have to be a country music guy to enjoy a show like that. And it was everything I thought it would be and more. It was phenomenal. Every single seat, plus the, I don't know, 5,000-6,000 on the floor, filled to capacity, and every single one of them seemed like they stayed to the very, very end. It was awesome.
For the final song.
Final song.
Which was?
Oh, he played. He played "Call in Baton Rouge," but that was not the final song. That was more of in the middle of the thing. But that was my main reason for wanting to go. I wanted to hear that song live. It was epic. Man, it was a cover he did to close it out, and it's a song that plays a lot when it's closing time at the bars in Baton Rouge. And so it'll come back to me in a second. But regardless, it was an awesome event. I sat in traffic about an hour and a half, 2 hours after well worth it. I didn't care. We were having a good time, and I'm glad I went.
You know, you guys don't realize this guy doesn't take off. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't take off at all. I mean, until really after football season, they have a couple beach trips, and it's right back at it.
Yeah.
I teased him yesterday on the radio show about getting a chance to take off. So glad you were able to do that.
Yeah.
A lot going on with the Saints right now on post draft, and why don't we start there? The big news, obviously, Tyrann Mathieu signing with the Saints, 3 years, $33 million, $18 million guaranteed. We've been talking about this on the radio show, you and I, for the last few weeks. Again, what happened with Justin Reed up in Kansas City, where again, what he had signed for, which again was not a big contract to begin with, and then Tyrann said, "Hey man, I would have signed for that." Okay, then he came to me, and the first thing I said on the radio show was, "If you'll sign for that for them, what will you do for the Saints?" Well, it's a hometown discount in some sorts when you look at it. 3 years, $33 million. It's not bad. It's a guy that's 29, going to be 30 when the season starts. And I like what you said on your show the other night, on the overtime show, where I don't think people's expectations have to be that this is a guy that's coming in at the top of his game.
Yeah.
This is not a guy on the downside of his game.
No.
This is a guy that's going to come in as a leader and as a playmaker. To me, this is May and Tyrann Mathieu are an upgrade over Williams and Jenkins.
If you add up what both players do, their strengths and weaknesses, and match that up against Marcus Williams and Malcolm Jenkins, given where Malcolm was at in his career and what Marcus Williams can and cannot do, I think it's an upgrade. I think it's a net positive. And the timing was just perfect. You just heard that a lot when he spoke yesterday. And those of us that have covered him, both in high school, college, and now professional, we all understood what that meant. The timing was right, even to the point of signing after the draft, not in the middle of all the frenzy, because that could have got crazy and who knows what would have happened after the draft when everything kind of slowed down and boom, this news comes out and it becomes a huge story. The contract is beautiful. Right. 3 years, $33 million. I was concerned because I was the one that asked Mickey, were you in the ballpark for Marcus Williams at $14 million? He said, we weren't in the ballpark. So where are you at in terms of Matthew's skill set versus that? Mathieu, at 30 years old, was willing to accept the 3 year, $33 million, $18 million guarantee. So we got the answer. They were able to, that was the ballpark they were willing to go. And I think Mathieu is a more complete player, can play nickel, can play strong, can play free, has ball hawking skills, different kind of ball hawking skills than Marcus Williams, tackles much better, gives you position versatility and flexibility. And I've been asked a lot, who's the free, who's the strong? My answer to that is let them figure it out. They will, and they will both wear that hat, both hats throughout the season, because they both have that to their game. He and Marcus May. So, look, everything just aligned perfectly with where he's at, where he's from, obviously here, where he's at in his career, the fit for the team, the contract, the timing. It would not have worked as a 20-year-old. No. It will work as a 30-year-old. I guarantee you, it will work as a 30-year-old.
I agree. I also, again, think they overpaid in bringing Malcolm Jenkins back in a lot of cases because, again, he was familiar with the system, but more leadership, right? They were worried about leadership. They wanted him to be a guy that could get by. Remember, there were so many breakdowns, so many busts in that secondary the year before that they went out and acquired him again. This is a guy that comes in and is still at the top of his game, in my opinion, and it's not an overpay, okay, for what you're getting. It's not an overpay, in my opinion. Some people again believe that maybe Jenkins was not an overpay. I felt it was. And look, they're going to get paid back in this when it comes to jersey sales, both Tyrann and the Saints. You're going to see when they decide what number he's going to go with, that is going to be one of the highest selling jersey sales out there.
Absolutely, and everyone's aware of that. Everyone knows that.
Right.
And everyone is embracing that. So I say, go all out with it. Go in.
They haven't done though, right? With LSU players in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing, LSU player, a connection, and I gotta say, check in Dennis Allen's box. Like, this is a signature move for a new head coach.
I agree.
Good move. Right. And I'm liking what I'm seeing out of and hearing out of him. I really am, for the most part throughout this off season. So I just think it's the perfect situation at the perfect time, and I said it last night. I'll say it again. There should be no, the question was asked, should they temper expectations? Absolutely not.
Come on, no way.
And I have to wonder. Now I went back and looked at his stats, his grades. I watched some film. Like, what was Kansas City thinking? What was Kansas City? Because he was one of the ones that helped them get to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
So, look, their loss. I mean, Saints gained,
right.
And here they are with a guy that, and early in his career he had injury issues, but he has figured that out because the last 5 years he's missed one game.
Yeah. And of course, look, obviously you saw in the press conference yesterday, he wants to be here. He's circled it. He waited, okay? He waited. And look, the Saints obviously have a new formula, and we've talked about it, right, on the radio show, where before it was going to free agency, fill holes, best player available in the draft. It's kind of flipped now. They're going out, and again, they want to get their holes filled in the draft. They want to be able to take care of their own, maybe in the early part of free agency, try to, again, hold on to their core. And then, after the draft, maybe again go in and be very, very strategic in how they go after free agents to fill those holes with an eye on compensatory picks, which they never cared about before. But over the last couple of years, they've cared about those compensatory picks, and they've used them in a lot of cases to be able to move on the draft board.
Yeah, look, and that was part of the reason for waiting.
Right.
To a T, news broke about Tyrann Mathieu.
Yes.
With the compensatory formula. So that has become a bigger part of the formula than it ever has in years past because, frankly, you had a head coach in years past that was so impulsive and wanted to get his guy at all costs. And when other teams are making big-time moves around the NFL, you know what happened. He got excited and he got in the mix. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. This is a little different approach, at least this year. A little more tempered approach, a little more mellow approach. Mellow's a bad word.
Right.
A little more modest approach. I mean, they took a swing with Deshaun Watson, and they missed.
They did.
But I think they've been able to regroup from that pretty nicely.
Right.
Even with the smoothing things over with Jameis Winston to the draft, which I'm sure you asked me about, to now Tyrann Mathieu. You're not going to get it. The circumstances aren't going to align perfectly like this when it comes to a guy like Tyrann Mathieu being available after the draft in most years. But this year, it was the path it took, and it worked out.
It did. The hope is, at least from my standpoint, they do the same thing with Jarvis Landry. I think they need another veteran wide receiver. He seems like, to me, to be a really good fit for this team. A lot of people say, well, it's a duplicate skill set from Michael Thomas. Well, let's imagine Michael Thomas doesn't come back 100%. Let's imagine Michael Thomas gets injured during the season. But let's also look at, again, the trust factor in having a veteran wide receiver who can catch the ball in traffic and be a good target for a guy like Jameis Winston, where he looked to be a little gun-shy throwing to the big lot collection of wide receivers they had last year, again, especially when it was over the middle in tight windows. So again, I'm hoping that Sony Michel is supposed to be able to visit the team this week as they're at the running back position. That's another position they have to fill. What are your thoughts on Landry? What are your thoughts on Sony Michel or another running back? Is that necessary with the situation with Alvin Kamara?
Yeah, I think it's certainly worthy of looking at all options, even without an Alvin Kamara situation.
Right.
I mean, you got to find a legitimate second back. I think we kind of underrate that. I mean, I think that's probably a much more valuable role than people realize.
Right.
I mean, the drop down from Latavius Murray to whoever was the second role last year, you want to call it Ingram, you want to call it Tony Jones, whatever the case may be, was significant.
Yes.
And you saw it took its toll on Alvin Kamara. Season high in carries, career low in games played. I mean, it just shows you all you need to know. So, in that regard, I think and they've got about maybe 10 roster spots left, something like that. So that makes sense. Jarvis Landry, I was told they felt good about, and they had felt good about it. I know Cleveland's still somewhat in the mix based on the reporting out of there.
New Orleans, from what we understand.
Yeah. So, I felt good about it going into the draft. I still feel good about it after the draft. He's available. We'll see if something works out. But if you don't land Jarvis Landry, and I'm a fan of Jarvis Landry coming to the Saints, but if you don't, I think you can survive that, but landing Tyrann Mathieu was absolutely huge and priority number one.
Yeah, I would agree. And then, look, there's some other wide receivers out there.
There are.
That again, if Landry's decides to go back to Cleveland, that again maybe have an opportunity to be able to get as well. Let's talk a little bit about the draft. And I've been a little bit critical, and because I don't think it's sustainable, and I've gotten some pushback from some Saints fans on social media. But to trade 5 picks to move up to get a wide receiver, which is normally, again, you trade 5 picks to move up to get a quarterback, it's just not sustainable long term. And we've seen this a lot, giving up picks, giving up the next year's number 1 to be able to go up and get a player. Look, I get it. The three top tackles came off the board, and you were probably a little bit scared if you're in that Saints draft from. Then you start looking again, the two top receivers go off the board, and then you're thinking, you know your guy. They said that was their guy from the beginning. They wanted Olave. So they did what they had to do to get it. I have no issue with it. I just don't think you can do that year after year after year because, again, to me, the meat of the draft is the second and the fourth round. That's where you find guys that, again, could be on your team for 10 years. That's where you find future Pro Bowlers. Again, that's where, for the backbone of your roster is, and the Saints sat that out this year. With that said, I like the pick. I like the player. I just think the cost was a little bit high. Your thoughts?
A little high, and I thought there was some value in the third and fourth round. And I think when the third and fourth round came, you saw some quality players. Ooh, man, that would have been. And Mickey even touched on that after the draft. Ooh, that would have been nice to maybe grab a player like that. But that's the risk you take. The only reason why I'm not as critical of the trade-ups this year of future ones is they netted 2 first-round picks, not one. In years past, 2018, they did it for one guy, Marcus Davenport, who still like the guy, but I still think there's a consistency issue. So I don't know if that's panned out.
Health issue.
And this health, probably more than health, leading to consistency. This, too. So that, to me, softened the blow of not having a third or fourth round because you had an extra one and a 2, no third, no fourth, obviously the fifth and the sixth. So you quantify the numbers, you look at the numbers, maybe a little short, maybe a little high. It all boils down to wins and losses. It all boils down where you feel like your team is competing with the rest of the league in terms of your formula for success and the approach you take. Now, when I look at the 22 starters and even the 2 deep, I see a team that all of a sudden looks competitive in the NFC.
I
mean, what, 7 teams make the playoffs? I think it's possible, easily. So I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I didn't like the value in the second round pick. That was out of alignment. But other than that, I was okay with the approach.
Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. Trevor Penny went to UNI, Northern Iowa, right? University of Northern Iowa. Got him at 19. He was the next guy on the board for as far as offensive tackles. Actually, holding their breath because they wanted to get. What they said, we want a receiver and tackle coming out of this draft, first round. So the question is right now, coming from an FCS school, a guy where he's brutalized the guy across from, right? He's always been the biggest guy on the line, etc. Can he translate and be a plug-and-play player in the NFL week one?
That's the hope. I think they feel like he can. They're not going to pencil him in right now, wisely so, because you just never know. And you're right. The size of DNs in whatever conference UNI is versus the size of the DNs in NFC South and NFC, much different.
And the speed.
But I will say this. And this is why the pre-draft circuit is necessary. When he went up against those guys at the Senior Bowl, Combine, he held his own. In fact, his stock rose because of how well he dominated. Not just did well, he dominated. Like anything else, coming from a small school, a lot of brute strength, it's Northern Iowa. Probably, I don't know their offense, but there probably was a lot of run blocking, out physical in a guy. You're gonna have to be a little bit of a tactician here. I would watch tape of Ryan Ramczyk because his footwork, his technical skills are flawless, and he's probably a little bit bigger than Ryan Ramczyk, but not by much. Got to get his footwork down, how to use your balance.
6'7", 320.
6'7", 320, how to use your footwork to your advantage, your mobility, how to carry your weight. And there's a lot of things with knee bend and balance that I'm sure coaches will get with him and work with him, and he will become that player. But I think he's going to be the starter at some point this season. You hope it's week one, but I'd be shocked if it's not at least by midway through next season.
We've got 2 good coaches, right? He's got Doug Marrone, who has been an offensive line guru, and he's got Zach Strief, who again has played the position at a very, very high level in the NFL, who's translated coaching now. So that's good in his favor, no doubt about it. But again, at 19, that's a plug-and-play guy. Okay? That's plug-and-play.
Absolutely, and it's a money position. I mean, come on, it's a money position. You do have a safety net in James Hurst, who ended up playing basically every game last year at multiple positions. So you can live with that, but you know what the ultimate goal is.
No doubt. I agree with you about Alontae Taylor, quarterback out of Tennessee. They picked him at 49, which means, again, they thought he was a top 50 player. I don't think they believed he was. I just believe that, again, they looked at the board, realized they were not going to be able to get him in the 3rd and 4th round because they had no picks. And at that point, they went for him.
Odd approach. It's just an odd approach.
It really is.
I mean, there was so much there at that point.
Trade back in.
And I think they wanted to trade back at some point to maybe grab a day 3 pick, but like that was just an odd approach there because I mean there was plenty of very good football players.
Yes.
And again, a top 50 guy, which they talked a lot about.
They wanted three
guys in the top 50 to make an instant impact. I'd be unless there's a lot of injuries, which I don't want to have happen. Obviously, I don't see him getting on the field on defense. It's going to be special teams.
Right, and then when you look at it, you say to yourself, okay, 4.3 speed, guy that went to Tennessee as a wide receiver, was immediately transformed into a cornerback. 4 years there, SEC receivers, I get it. I don't remember him really sticking out at Tennessee. I just don't. I mean, again, I'm not trying to downplay the pick because I'm sure a lot of people could say, look, hey man, I got him on film and watched him forever. But the other thing is that Cody Burns was the wide receiver coach at Tennessee, and he saw this guy every day last year. He saw him in games, so I'm sure they went and picked his brain on again his practice habits, etc. We'll see. They obviously believe in him.
Yeah.
You said special teams. I agree with you, but then again, he'll have a chance to be able to again compete against a Debo on the opposite side. That leads really to before I go to the next 2 picks. Sean, I think you look at this secondary right now. It's got to be one of the best secondaries in the NFL.
I was doing the numbers yesterday. Matter of fact, I'll have a package on it if you're watching the live broadcast here Thursday on Fox 8 at 5 o'clock. Just running through the numbers, running through the personnel on defense. All of a sudden, you're like, ooh, this isn't bad. This really isn't bad. And then you talk about the secondary. You're talking about May, Matthew, Adebo, Lattimore, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, P.J. Williams. I mean, you talk about that's some quality football players that play a lot of football. Roby as well. I mean, you talk about some guys that really know how to play, guys versatility, and you know that really allowed them to morph into it. And they're one of the few teams that do this in the NFL. That third down dime defense that they ran with Dennis Allen, where it was 3 down linemen, 2 backers, and 6 DBs, and you had Malcolm Jenkins playing up close, but you had better matchups on the field in third, medium, and third and long. So I still think that stays, even without Marcus Williams, even without Malcolm Jenkins. Now you got to teach it to these guys and make sure, can't be too hard for them to learn. They're playing a lot of defenses. So I think the secondary all of a sudden, not just good, but there's kind of an edge to these guys. And I think if I had one criticism of some of the players over the last couple of years, they didn't quite have the edge that this group is going to have, an edge to these guys.
Feels like it's going to be a ball hawking secondary too. It kind of feels like it.
Kind of a grindy type secondary as well.
Right. No, I agree. I would agree with that. And then I was talking the other day, and some people feel the defensive line is the strength of this defense. Well, if the defensive line is the strength of the defense, and we know that you have some pretty good linebackers, especially if they can bring back Quan Alexander, which again is up in the air right now. But even then, Pete Werner coming into having an opportunity to play more. He showed some flashes last year. Well, then you're talking at the first, second, third level. That's a pretty stout defense.
It really is, and I think that's going to be, another strength of this team. And that's going to be where they hang their hat.
Right.
Up front, you have Cam Jordan, you have Davenport, you have Granderson, you have Peyton Turner. I mean, maybe he becomes a stud.
Maybe so.
We'll see.
Big year for Davenport.
D-tackle, Onyemata, to me, the most underrated player on the team. Right. Shai Tuttle, Kentavious Street.
Right.
Excuse me. Yes. And you draft the kid out of Air Force.
Right.
So
Jordan Jackson.
A couple other players there as well. That group is coached up well. That's why, to me, I never worry about it because Ryan Nielsen's the best assistant coach on the team.
Yep.
So that group is coached up well, and the proof is in the pudding because everybody gets better underneath them.
The 5th round pick, Demario Jackson, out of Appalachia State, speed, size. A lot of people think that again
I think he's a sneaky good pick. I think he's a guy that could work his way onto the field in certain rotations, certain situations. I think he's a special teams dog, though. Right. I think he's a guy who's going to be one of those type of guys. And I think Zach Bond, that 2020 class is on the clock, and I think Zach Bond's one of them. We can talk about all 3 of them if you want. But I think he's a guy that I think he's going to make the roster. I think he's a special teams guy for sure. And if you look at the numbers at linebacker, when I wrote out that depth chart, I was like, okay, maybe that might, if you want to say that, you use the word thin, maybe that's the spot just because maybe you can use another body, but if he pans out, maybe you don't have to add anybody.
Yeah, right. Which is one of the reasons why I brought Quan up again. Again, it comes down to money as it always does. They have the money. What is their number for Quan Alexander? But again, it would be a nice re-addition to this team. Because him and Davis work so well together. I'm not trying to keep Werner on the bench here. It's just, again, when you have two guys that are in sync like they are, and the speed he brings to the defense, everything that he does, his instincts, I would like to see him back. You mentioned Jordan Jackson, defensive tackle out of Air Force. Normally it would be a deferment. There is no deferment now. He comes right in. And a lot of people love his inside pass rushing ability.
And if you can do that, in today's NFL from the interior, that's a coveted skill set. There's so few people with that size and skill walking the face of the earth. And obviously, the Saints have made it very clear they believe in the line of scrimmage, and they're going to stock the line of scrimmage as much as they humanly can and possibly can. And they did that with this pick. There are some numbers there, though. He's going to have to fight through some young veterans along that interior as well.
A lot of guys are undrafted free agents, too.
I mean, and you got some undrafted free agents that have really battled and made the team and played well. So you certainly respect going through the service academy that he does, that those players have to do, because the workload and what they have to do and what they sign up for is certainly admirable. And to be a football player, to be able to get drafted out of there is certainly it's awesome. It's respectable as well.
I would agree.
So I think he's got a shot at making the team. But if he doesn't, I think he's a good practice squad guy as well.
And look, that's the other thing. With the expanded practice squad now, it's a lot easier to hold on.
You can hold on to these guys. So if he doesn't make the team, so be it. You can put him on a practice squad.
Exactly, and then he may be pulled off throughout the year. We saw that all over.
And that may be a good for him, just to use that year to maybe learn and transition.
I would agree. Now, again, undrafted free agents, look, the Saints have a reputation. I mentioned this on the radio show the other day. There's a reason why agents send their players to the Saints when they don't get drafted. Peyton did this a long time ago with Pierre Thomas. Doesn't matter how you got here. Once you're here, you have a shot, again, as good a shot as anybody to make the roster and to get on the field. I'm sure that's going to be the same thing with Dennis Allen. Of the undrafted free agents, anybody stuck out to you? I'll tell you the two that did. Smith, the running back from me out of Baylor, and then Lucas Krull out of Pittsburgh, the tight end.
Yes, both of those plus, Smoke Monday. The safety out of Auburn.
Only the numbers gave him, right?
4th round grade, yeah.
But he's got a skill set.
Yeah, 4th round grade. And if you look at the bigger draft class this year, meant the undrafted pool was probably going to have higher grades than the years past. Abram Smith, they gave him some good money. That's almost a guarantee of a spot. So I think he's got a strong shot. If I watched a ton of Kenny Pickett coming up for this draft, preparing for this draft, because he was the one I really liked, because I felt like he had the highest floor, and it looks like the NFL kind of agreed with me that he was the only first-round pick to go. But if you watch it, number 7 pops a lot. Not perfect in his form, can use some refinement to his route running, but athletic, ball skills. If you look at that tight end depth chart, he's got a shot.
Oh, I agree.
He's got a shot. So I really like the Pitt tight end, and then obviously I already mentioned Smoke Monday, and then look, I love the young kid, local kid, Dixon as well. He got good size, and if he can run the seam, the Saints have not had someone that could truly run the seam since Marcus Colston and Jimmy Graham. Give me a guy that can run the seam, you have a chance.
Big kid, maybe doesn't have the speed, but again, neither did Marcus Colston.
Exactly.
No doubt. All right. They address wide receiver. Maybe they get another one in free agency. They address the offensive line with the offensive tackle position. The safety is now set up with Tyrann Mathieu. Tight end, I agree with you. I think Krull may come in and might have a shot at it again. But I still believe that Taysom Hill, if he's back from Liz Frank injury, is going to be a guy that is going to flourish in that position. And look, I have not given up on Trout.
Me either. I have not. I know a lot of people have. I have not. I still think there's something, and he's a true what they call Y inline tight end. So he's the only one on that roster right now that can do it. And look, Jawan Johnson had moments last year as well.
He did.
Nick Vannett was more of a blocking guy. He's under contract, so he'll be back. But the tight end position is a little bit unknown, but I still think there's some potential there.
Right. So when you look at it, they pretty much filled their holes at this point. Running back is a need. It's still a need. Okay, I still believe they need another veteran wide receiver, but they pretty much filled their needs at this point. Will Clapp to the Chargers, how much of a loss is that?
He was a guy they can rely on in that jumbo tackle eligible package that they ran. He was a spot starter at times, provided valuable depth. He was a guy that well liked in the locker room and can give you a little bit of position versatility. As I said, play center, play guard, did the tackle eligible thing. But you can certainly survive it. You pull for a guy like Will Clapp. Obviously, he's from here and went to LSU. So I think he's going to go. He's reuniting with was it Lombardi out in LA. And he's managed to survive here. This career for a 7th-round pick in 2018. He's managed to survive here. It's going to be his 5th year in the NFL.
Right.
So, more power to him.
Yep, no doubt. You may be seeing a little bit more Sean Payton, huh? As a Fox studio host?
Yeah, apparently that's the word around town is that he'll be joining Fox as a studio analyst. It's funny, we all had dinner with Sean Payton after he left,
right?
About a month after, a couple weeks after he had officially resigned or stepped down. And the way we were talking to him, it almost sounded like he wanted to do games. And then I guess within the last month or so that it's changed. He wants to be in studio. He's going to be, according to that report, I guess you'd call it the B team.
Yes.
But the B team would turn to the A team very quickly because apparently Jimmy Johnson would not be as committed every week to doing every Sunday. And then I guess in that spot, Sean Payton would slide in. I'm curious. I mean, look, I have sat down and talked ball with Sean. Obviously, he knows exactly what he's talking about. I've talked to him from a conversational standpoint. I think he's better in a long form format as opposed to the quick soundbite format. Yes. So we'll see. This is a chance for him to kind of flex his football muscles a little bit in a different way, and we'll see if it works out.
Seat's not going to be that. He's not going to be on that seat too much longer. I think the Saints are banking on him being back again with head coach somewhere.
Very high price, lucrative price.
No
for
doubt.
them.
and look, I'm telling you, Saints are banking. That's why they traded that number 1 pick this year. They are banking on him coming back, and they're going to be able to get that number 1 and number 2 back next year, and going to utilize that because again, they know Sean as good as anybody.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Sean, and they know he's not going to be able to stay out of football long. Now the question is he going to the AFC or the NFC? And we'll see how the fan base feels about it. Well, if he lines up with the Dallas Cowboys or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Do I dare say the Atlanta Falcons? Let's hope not. All right, let's take a break. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, right.
Are you kidding me? I mean, Bobby Hebert, we want to go down the line?
Yeah, right.
Of ex-Saints, Morton Anderson, broke our heart. No doubt about it. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about what's going on with the Pelicans. We'll touch on the Breakers. We'll get into LSU, Tulane, all coming up on Inside New Orleans Sports. From Fox 8 Sports, Sean Fazende is our guest. Don't go anywhere.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports is our guest. Sean, USFL, with, again, the Pelicans now out of the playoffs, the Saints draft, the page turned on that. I think a lot of people start looking more to what's going on with the USFL, if it's going to survive with, again, in terms of this fan base. 22-13 losers to Birmingham Stallions last week. They're 2-1. I'll just say this. Watching the team, again, when you look at the difference between the talent level of this USFL to when USFL of my era, coming up, where they had a lot of really good college players that, again, shunned the NFL to go there. They had NFL players that ended up, again, leveraging the NFL and going to the USFL. Especially the quarterbacks. They had some really good quarterbacks.
Jim Kelly.
Oh, come on. It was amazing, okay? And then some really great coaches like, again, Jim Moore. I mean, look, if there wasn't a USFL, Jim Moore doesn't come to New Orleans and turn Bum Phillips, again, base, of players that he put together into a team that was a perennial playoff team, right? But the Breakers seem to have at least a handful of players that I think are playing the NFL, and that's the thing that's intriguing as we get a little bit deeper now into this, into this league that's playing in Birmingham. Not a lot of fans, really kind of made for TV, but there are some players that they're going to get invited to camp somewhere.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the point.
Right, it is.
I think they've kind of embraced the semi-pro slide. You know, that USFL, they wanted to rival the NFL back in the day.
As soon as Donald Trump got involved with the New Jersey Generals, he wanted to go head-to-head against the NFL because they would not give him a franchise.
Exactly.
But and it was the demise of the USFL. They may have made it.
Yeah.
Okay. But or at the very least may have been absorbed. A few teams absorbed, much like the AFL was. Right.
That's kind of what was the goal at that point. I'd have to go back and look, but. You could tell the talent disparity. That's clear.
That's the first thing you said.
When I watched Easter Sunday, the game, it was a breakaway on one of them runs. I mean, that angle that safety took on a running back was, oh my goodness, that he didn't come close. But there are some talented guys, and there are some recognizable names that it's not like they're foreign to the NFL. So they've kind of been in and out, back and forth. This is a chance for them to get on the field and play, refresh that tape, keep it going, because that's the hardest thing when you're one of these guys is roster bubble here. Cut today, make a team today, cut tomorrow, and you live this life. I talk to guys like that. I mean, I talked to several that were able to catch on here, but live that life for like 3 or 4 years. It's miserable. At least here, you're on the field and playing.
Yes.
So the guys that can certainly still have that skill set for the NFL, I think the NFL is looking, and we'll watch. I think the Breakers have a couple guys, the defensive end, wide receiver, like the quarterback. I don't know if he's got an NFL future, but I like the quarterback, the tight end as well. So, what are they, 2-1 right now?
2-1.
I'd be very curious to see if they're going to keep this format of all games in Birmingham from here on out. Or is that just year one?
It's year one. Just year one.
To cut down
I believe the playoffs are not in Birmingham. Okay. But again, it's hard to build a fan base if they're there.
Exactly.
The question is, if they make it and come to New Orleans, where do they play? Okay, they played in the Dome the first time around. They're not playing in the Dome. The Dome's not going to give up those dates. Okay, they haven't played a Dome. The question is, do they play a Tulane? Do they play at Gormley? I would think Tulane would be the best spot for them. Okay, if they can get that going, and then we'll see again. But again, then you're talking about spring and summer football outdoors. Been a long time since people in New Orleans sat outside and watched a football game. Okay, with that heat. But we'll see how it kind of plays out. But I want to see again how this really kind of works out with this first year. I thought it was interesting they did that. It's really kind of made for TV and not really made for the fans.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Although Birmingham had some fans, obviously.
And when you talk about those startup leagues like that, sometimes the things that really get them, expenses, travel expenses, that kind of thing. So this kind of limits that. So I guess, I don't know, whatever.
The thing I worry about, Sean, is, again, you've got 2 other spring leagues now.
Yeah.
Okay? I think,
but that will work itself out, where they're not all going to survive. No, that will work itself out. They're not all going to survive.
That's the thing. Let's just shift gears to the Pelicans. And, man, how many years we sat here just was like, look, it's a total different feel, a total different situation. After losing 3-2 to the Suns in the first round of the NBA playoffs, I'm one that thought if they put Zion on the court, they had a chance to win that series. Okay, Zion said he could have played. We'll see again if that's water under the bridge now. But the big turnaround, let's talk about it. And because look, 1-12, 3-16. There's no one that gave them a chance to be able to pull out of that hole to do what they did down the stretch here. You've got a situation with David Griffin who was ready to be, look, I've said it before, dead vice president of basketball operations walking, right? He was out of here at the end of the season. To now, he could be the executive of the year in the NBA for what he has done. And the first part of that is, again, bringing in Willie Green, who, look, that's a Powerball winner, right? Nobody knew Willie Green was going to be able to do what he did in terms of quickly changing the culture, getting the buy-in from not just young players, but veteran players as well. Just an amazing turnaround in a short period of time for this franchise.
Yeah, and look, the foresight to have to part ways with Stan Van Gundy, which didn't look good on the surface, but when you look at it, Stan Van Gundy cared more about tweeting about politics than he cared about coaching the team. To bring in a guy like Willie Green, somewhat of an unknown in terms of the coaching ranks, but having to roll the dice a little bit and then hitting. It makes a world of difference. And this is a guy, to me, he's a young Monty. He obviously learned under Monty.
Right.
I remember interviewing Willie when he was a player here. He had something special about him, and obviously
he was a leader then.
You just don't know until you get into that chair what you're going to do. I think he's surrounded himself with a good staff. I think the players have really bought in. They feel the genuine nature. They feel the passion, the love. They certainly feel the love. And we sit here as observers, and I went back and looked. C.J. McCollum trade, and you may have the exact number, but I counted 15 wins and 14 losses to close the season, so call it a third of the season. To me, if you just had that version of the Pelicans for an entire season, it's a 45-win team in my opinion. What would have been what? I don't know what seed that would have been, 7 maybe? I don't know what it was. So you throw Zion in the mix. Are we crazy to say this is a 50-55 win team?
No, I don't think you're crazy.
What would that put you in? That's contender status, in my opinion.
Right. That's top
like
four.
I'm ready to embrace the big picture. I am done with the half stepping. This Pelicans team turn the corner next year, and for once you don't have to worry about the face of the franchise wanting to go to the greener pastures.
Right.
And if he does, bye.
Right.
See you later. There's the door. So for the first time in forever, I mean, you just feel like this franchise is on solid ground. And you saw that building. It just goes to show you, you build the winner, they will come. And not just come, I mean, make a difference.
Right.
Make a difference. So it's a good feeling to have because, you know, for a while there, I was a little frustrated with just basketball in general, just because they weren't doing well, but just the business of basketball, like the way it's kind of run. It's like the nature of the business model. I'm just like, you know, this is no fun.
Right.
But now, 180.
Right. No. And then look, it comes with a culture change. And you saw right before your very eyes. You covered every moment of Sean Payton's tenure here in New Orleans, and you saw the culture change right before your very eyes. It took maybe a little bit longer with the football team because you've got more players than you do with basketball. But it was the same type of change that we saw with the Pelicans, and it was done quickly. It was a very, very quick buy-in on what Willie Green was selling with these players. Despite all the controversy of Zion Williamson all season long,
that hung over all year, and guess what?
All year.
He worked through it.
Right.
I mean, again, like, that takes a special guy, I mean, to navigate those circumstances. Because a lot of times you're the guy that's got to face everything and answer everything.
Right.
Because Zion wasn't talking.
Right.
David Griffin didn't talk that much.
Right. It was all on Willie Green.
Willie Green. And we saw Gentry struggle with that at times.
Yes, he
and
did.
We saw Stan Van Gundy almost too honest about it at times. Like, I thought Willie Green handled it with grace, with respect, with carefulness, if that's even a word.
Right.
And look at the end result. I mean, they had no business being in that Sun series. Taking them 6, putting the fear of God in those guys.
Right.
Absolutely.
Big reason, obviously, is McCollum. Again, what he brought to the team in terms of his leadership. But again, just watching Josh Hart and Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the day they were traded, you know, in the Smoothie King Center, sitting behind their teammates, and then during the playoff run, seeing Josh Hart again in the stands supporting again his former team.
Right?
You don't see that in professional sports.
No.
You just don't see that, which tells you again they have something special. Which again, I guess really tells us why you saw the turnaround within Zion Williamson as well. With again last week saying that if offered the extension, he again couldn't sign it fast enough. We'll see. Not so fast, my friend.
I don't think it's a slam dunk as in like, all right, here's the extension, sign it. Like I think there's some factors and some parameters that have to be worked out there because let's be honest, the resume is not nearly as great as everyone would like it to be.
No, and look, you cannot. What is it? 85 games. I mean, look. There's got to be, much like Joel Embiid, who is, again, an MVP, right? You've got to put things in that contract, parameters in that contract that protect the club, okay? That protect the club. They tried to protect Zion through these injuries, protect the club. Yeah. And, again, is he willing to sign those? I mean, it's not going to be just, hey, here's the money. Right. Here's $185 million. Right. Okay? It's going to be, there's some parameters in it that protect the club. And do you still feel the same way then? For the first time in a long time, Sean, and we and I have talked about this on the radio, this is not a one-man team anymore. This is not just one. This is not just the face of the franchise. Right. And oh my God, is he going to leave? Let's hold on. Let's do everything we can to be able to hold on to him. You know, give him free red beans and rice every Monday, whatever.
Right.
Okay. Now it is a team, and if Zion doesn't buy in, like you just said, bye. You know, you can get assets for him. You've proven that, okay? With the Lakers trade for Anthony Davis, with the Milwaukee trade for Drew Holiday, those assets come in handy in the form of what? A lottery pick this year from the Lakers, which can even add more to this team.
And my God, they won that. It didn't feel that way at the time, but they have won that Anthony Davis trade. They have won that Anthony Davis trade, and you pull off C.J. McCollum trade, which I think is the key.
Yes.
More than anything else is C.J. McCollum, because that's a seasoned veteran saying, yes, I want to be here. I think
throw Larry Nance in there as well.
Yes.
Okay.
He was in, but what I mean, but like just from a leadership, intangible standpoint, I think it was him.
Yes.
Everyone seemed to gravitate to, and I think him being in lockstep with Willie Green. It's like the second he got here, it's like he's been here forever. All of a sudden, everything came into place after that. So, yes, you're right. And then I happen to believe, if you want to call it a face, I think it's Brandon Ingram. I think this is Brandon Ingram's team. I mean, I think he's the one with the superstar potential right now.
Yes.
because Zion's got to prove he can stay healthy.
I agree.
So.
And expand his game.
I will say this, though, and all the good vibes, they're all well earned. It's a different challenge when you're dealing with success, which is what they will do next year.
Oh, they'll see by
you will deal with success.
Right.
You will deal with expectation. You will deal with disappointment if you don't meet those expectations. It's not going to be the lovable, laughable Pelicans anymore. You know, they're expecting big-time victories next year, and it's a new challenge, but I have no doubt Willie Green can rise to it.
I'm with you, Arnie. So maybe 2 roster spots available. Snell is in the last year of his deal. Probably will not be re-signed. There's a lot of whispers out there that Garrett Temple, he may be bought out and moved up into the coaching staff, which makes sense because he was brought in as a veteran leader, right? They've got veteran leaders on this team right now. Deontay Graham did not really work out. That doesn't mean it doesn't work out long term, but maybe he's the guy that can be put into a trade. And as I mentioned, you got the 8th overall pick now. That could move up. That could move up. So again, not a lot of wiggle room in terms of roster spots. And then if you do offer a max extension to Zion, that's 3 max players on your team. So there's not a lot of wiggle room to be able to bring in another type of player like that. What do you think they need?
I was asked this the other day, and I said, maybe you can get a little bit more consistent 3-point shooting, but they've had it, in spurts. A true shooter, like that's what he's here to do. Right. Maybe. I think you got to identify your rotation right now and who can give you the best, maybe some good minutes off the bench. Kind of define what that is, What do you think you need? I mean, I know there was some talk about maybe getting a little more rebounding. I thought the rebounding was the reason why they were even in the series against the Suns.
And Zion's going to rebound.
Exactly. But if you really look at it, is there a glaring hole?
Shooting.
Yeah, just give me a 3-point guy. And
you just need more shooting.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's all you need. Because the floor is going to be spread out a little bit different than what we saw this year with Zion next year. But to me, you can never get enough shooters. I've heard some say, a point guard. But again, you've got guys on that court that can handle the ball. I don't think you'll be saying point Zion anymore. I thought that was a failed experiment to begin with, and had some flaws in it. But to me, it is shooting.
Contributed to his health stuff too. I mean, the constant aggression, thunderous play. I thought it kind of contributed a little bit.
Well, to me, look, he's got to expand his game. He's got to be able to.
That's key. We don't ever talk about that enough. No. He's got to become a better player.
He's got to. He's relying on the same thing he did in AAU and at Duke.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to. The great ones every single season take one thing and get better at it. Okay, I mean that's what. If you're a great player, that's what you do. To me, it's got to be mid-range. He's got to get a mid-range shot. Eventually, you can get him out to 3-point shot and be a 3-point shooter. But right now, mid-range shooter. And I'll say this, Sean. I've said this going out of last year before the injury. Got to be a double-double guy. That means he was 27 and 7. That means 3 more rebounds a game. He's got to be a 10 rebound a game every game.
That was always the thing even when he was at his best. I mean, he could be better on the boards.
He really could.
He can give you a little more because the way he's built, how physical he is. He can do better at that. And I agree with you on the mid-range stuff. It can't just be head down straight to the goal dunk. Like you got to develop some finesse.
Look at Brandon Ingram. I mean, so that mid-range is so sweet.
Oh, okay. It's great. Yeah.
And look, a lot of guys don't. Again, it's 3-point or bust now.
Yeah.
If you can perfect that mid-range jumper and have the ability to be able to drive like he does, he's going to be unguardable.
Yeah.
Just going to be unguardable. Let's switch to LSU. First of all, congratulations to the Tigers. Okay, football team. 10 players drafted, 4 undrafted free agents in NFL camps. 19 of the 22 starters from the 2019 championship game have been drafted.
Wow, that's a hell of a team.
That's
an incredible team. NFL LSU. Yeah, it just goes to show you, man. Those last 2 years, gosh. Not sure what was going on behind closed doors because they had some serious talent.
Some talent, right? These guys get drafted, right?
You have that many guys drafted.
They had more guys drafted in Alabama. Alabama had 7 players drafted. They had 10.
It's unbelievable.
Cincinnati had 9, right? Okay, LSU had 10.
Yeah.
So that tells you again how much talent they had on that team. That just again. Look, it is what it is. That Orgeron he wasn't able to sustain the success that he had. The spring game opened up a lot of eyes for a lot of people. Again, a lot of people thought it was going to be Daniels and Brennan as maybe the 2 guys that are going to be vying for the starting job. All of a sudden, I know I was the most impressed with. Yes, I was impressed with Brennan because Brennan is Brennan. But Nussmeier's the guy that really impressed me.
Absolutely. And if you go back and watch, which I did, There were 3 incompletions. I thought were his 3 best throws. The 3 incompletions that he threw that were perfectly placed. There was a drop. There was a kind of guy could get his foot down. It was I mean, he has really, really improved. Which is not. I watched a ton of his high school film. How much that high school offense, I think it was Marcus High maybe. How much that high school coach clearly built his offense around Garrett Nussmeier's ability to play football IQ and throw the ball downfield. Last year he was a little bit of a let me get out there and show what I can do. This year he's a little more seasoned, knowing when to use that gunslinger, knowing when to back off a little bit. Got great mobility, and it's a run to throw as opposed to run to run. So I really like the kid. Now look, it's spring. I really wish I could have seen more practices. I understand there were a couple of open practices, and I even tried to work my way into one, but I wasn't able to be successful with that. But I would love to watch these guys practice in training camp because it's what I do. But I think he's got a shot. Miles Brennan, obviously, you heard the head coach speak glowingly about him with the way he's able to execute, manage the game, run the offense. But he's got the prolific nature, and that comes with his arm. So I want to see that progress as well. Jaden Daniels is a little interesting to me. I don't want to use the word disappointment, but I don't know if maybe I expected something different in what I actually saw. He's a guy who's got great mobility, like elite mobility. But man, there was something kind of funky with a deep ball he threw where he kind of did a 2-footed jump and kind of almost shot-putted it and a little inaccurate at times. So I know a lot of people are expecting him to walk right into a starting job, and maybe he eventually gets it. But I just what I saw versus what I imagined, or I guess I thought was what his skill set was, it didn't quite match up. So point being, this is still a 3-man race for the quarterback position.
And Howard's going to redshirt.
Yeah, and I think he's fine with it.
And from what I understand, he is fine with it as well. The good news for across the board, May 1st was the deadline to be able to transfer out of the transfer portal and be able to have immediate eligibility. That's done now. So again, we'll see again how that plays out. You can at least your roster is stable.
Yeah.
Okay, at this point going in, and I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic about this year, but even more optimistic about the future with Brian Kelly as the head coach. This is a foundational year.
Yeah, and I've used the word a ton because it's infrastructure. There's an infrastructure here.
Right.
And there is a way that he communicates that's unlike any LSU coach that I've, even Saban. Like, Saban was always more angry.
Right.
But the way Kelly seems to kind of communicate his ideas to the public, you just get the feeling he's a very detailed, very sharp, organized guy. And if you look at the success he's had, not just in football but in other areas of life, you can understand why he's had that success. So I'm excited about the Brian Kelly era.
Well, he empowers the players to be able to lead their own, to lead the team.
He does, and I think there's a healthy I'm gonna let you do your thing, but I'm in charge.
Right.
This is the way I want it, and then the details will be left to you guys. And then if I see something wrong, I'm gonna step in. I think I think you need that push-pull, so to speak.
And a lot like NFL rosters, right? I mean, and a coach can only do so much.
Right.
You know this from being in the Saints locker room all the time. It is the leaders in that locker room, those veterans, that really, again, get everybody in line. It's not the coaches come in and do that. It's the players. It's peer pressure within the locker room, and he's utilizing that at LSU.
Absolutely, and I just think the infrastructure that is in place in terms of roster management, roster expectations, even to the point of meetings. From what I understand, there were kids essentially asked to transfer because they were late for meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, just the detail, the organization, clearly that had fallen off after 2019.
No doubt. Tulane is exciting because they've got multiple transfers of high school players that played in New Orleans, played in Louisiana, guys that you were covering on your Fox Friday show that now have come to Tulane with a second chance at a collegiate career. And in the spring, those guys look great.
It really did, and good on them for using that ability. A, Tulane bringing those guys back, and B, those guys realizing Tulane is not a bad place to continue the collegiate career if the first stop does not work out, and that was not always the case. This Tulane, we've talked about Tulane quite a bit, but I think what Willie Fritz has done, we talked about infrastructure a lot. I think he did that at Tulane. Now it's time to maybe expand on that a little bit, but good on those guys, because I always think that program is better when you have a few more local ties. I think there were times that they drifted away from that. Now I think with a little more local ties, I think that can certainly help just the brand of Tulane here locally.
No doubt, and we'll be talking more about Tulane as we get a little bit closer. Let's jump into college baseball. Let me run through the standings real quick. LSU 30-14, 12-9. They're third in the SEC West. They're at Alabama for a big series this weekend. Tulane 28-17-1, 9-6. They're in fourth place in the American Athletic. They have Cincinnati at home this weekend. UNO 23-19, 9-9. They're in a fourth place tie. They have Incarnate Word out at UNO this weekend. Nichols is in first place in the Southland, 24-17, 11-7 overall. The SLU is in part of that fourth place tie with Northwestern and UNO at 19-25, but 9-9 within the conference. LSU and Tulane look to be poised to have a shot at maybe getting into postseason play.
Yes, and I think in LSU's case, you know, I was critical earlier in the year. I'm like, every single win they get right now, they're scoring 8 or 9 runs. So that's fine. That means they obviously got a potent lineup, but you're not always going to be able to win every game 9-2 or 9-8. You got to be able to win some 4-3, 3-2 games. Well, lately, they've been able to do that.
Yes.
So I think they've turned a corner. They don't have a dominant pitcher. It's going to be pieced together, Johnny Holstaff, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I think, you know, Blake Money's been a little bit of a disappointment, but, you know, we'll see what happens there. But if you can somehow manage that while also being consistent with the bats, obviously you have a chance. I thought they turned a corner this weekend. I really did.
Yeah.
Phenomenal walk-off. I mean, that was just phenomenal. Phenomenal walk-off. So I think LSU is in line to host a regional, and probably this is a super regional team at most. I don't know if they're an Omaha team just yet, unless they're just going on fire with the bats.
But I mean, again, it was a rebuilding.
It always was, yeah.
You know,
and that's your floor for quote-unquote rebuild, is get to the super regional. I'll take it.
Right, and of course, when you look at the South, and that's probably a one-bid league, so UNO's in the mix as well. When you start looking at that there, and it's a really, you know, we'll see how that plays out within their conference. But Tulane looks like, again, they look like they're going to be in it this year. When you look at the RPI and everything they've got, they look like they're going to have a chance at postseason play.
Another team that hits the ball, man. They hit the ball. So they got to finish the job, though. They were in this position again at the same time last year. They got to finish the job this year.
No doubt about it. Sean, before we get out of here, didn't ask you going out. Tell us about all the program over Fox 8 Sports.
A lot. We have plenty of Fox 8 stuff, 4, 5, 9, and 10 every night. The Overtime podcast, which we have our latest one up on the Final Play app or fox8live.com. Sunday night, we have the Final Play show at 10:30. Every Tuesday, we do the Fox 8 Overtime show.
Right.
Hope you're not mixing up the names there, but Fox 8 Overtime show at 10:30 as well. And my blog, after further review on fox8live.com.
An award-winning blog. I had to say it for him. He never says it. Sean, thanks as always.
Always
really appreciate the time. There you go. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, you know this now. You get, there should be a QR code coming up on your screen. There are plenty of ways to catch our program. Again, with rebroadcast. Again, just click on the WLAE-TV YouTube page or through the QR code. Or again, my website. Tell you again all the ways to be able to catch our program. Also, again, you catch me on radio 4 to 6 on 106.1 FM Nash Icon. Again, you listen live at ericasher.com. Anchor is our home base for our podcast. We're on all podcasting platforms, including, again, Apple, you name it. We're on all podcasting platforms. Also want to thank our underwriters that make this show possible. Each and every one of those underwriters, we appreciate each and every one of them. Please, if you would, support those underwriters. And then, of course, the WLAE production staff is, again, second to none. From Ron Yeager to Jim Dotson, Logan Graffia, Alex Chacon, and, of course, my director, William Hill. For Sean Fazende, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Have a great week.